Hilarious. I started this muted again. How many months have we been away from COVID and I still can't unmute myself? What an idiot. Anyway, good afternoon, everyone. Or what up, 24-hour party people? Tis I, Tim, the brand weaver, and you're listening to Branding for Breweries, the podcast that brings you the brightest minds from the brewing industry to help your brewery thrive and survive. And today, as always, is no exception. As for the first time ever, I have a return guest on. Now, many of you may not have witnessed the first conversation that I've had with this dashing young gentleman who I'll be bringing on screen shortly, because he was in the first origin of the Branding for Breweries podcast, when it wasn't even a podcast, it was just a live chat. So I thought, well, he was such a good chap, such a good conversationalist, that I'll bring him back and I'll record his voice for prosperity. So, ladies and gentlemen, put your digital hands together for Mr. Nathan Morrow.
Hello, how are we?
Hey man, how are you getting on? You all right?
Not too bad, thank you. Not too bad. We're surviving in this heat. I said, being Irish, I'm not built for this, but we're surviving.
You're holding on in there, my man. You're holding on.
That's it. That's it.
Dude, thank you for coming back. This is wonderful. This is going to be a really cool chat. It's going to be something a little bit different to what we originally spoke about. But if I cast my mind back, obviously last time with your background and what you do, we were talking about what buyers look for when bringing on breweries. And if people want to listen to that, then go back into my LinkedIn live history and find it somewhere. But today is a little bit different because we bumped into each other at Brew London a couple of weeks ago. I may have been mildly tipsy by that point, so my recollection of the the greeting is slightly fuzzy. But if I remember correctly, you ran over to me and was like, "Tim, I've been looking for you for ages. I knew you were here. Thank God you're here. I've got something really important to talk to you about, Tim." And I was like, "Whoa, Nathan, calm down, man. I get it. That's cool. Let's have a chat." And you're like, "Tim, you're the best. I really appreciate everything you do." And naturally,
it's 100% accurate. 100% accurate.
Oh, thank God for that. It wasn't
clearly you hadn't drunk enough.
Okay, but what we are going to talk about, Nathan, is what you've spotted is the rise of the fruit forward beers, and this being kind of like the drink of the summer, where this has come from, the trends that you're spotting, and we're going to expand that out a little bit more. Correct?
Yep, that's exactly it.
All right, my man. Well, for those lovely people who have not listened to the original show with you in, could you, in a Cilla Black-esque way, tell us what's your name, where'd you come from, and what do you do? Why should people give you 30 minutes of their well-earned brewing time to listen to your dulcet tones, my man?
Yeah, so as Tim said, I'm Nathan. I'm originally from Northern Ireland, as you can probably tell. I've now been working in the beers, wines and spirits industry for on and off for nearly 10 years now. Started out in the off trade at Sainsbury's, was in the supply chain team and the spirits team and wine. Then spent a bit of time in Impulse, moved back into beer, then to be a buyer in a variety of different wholesalers over the last number of years. Currently working for Venus as the head of beer. Venus is part of the Tesco Booker Group, so we're doing the premium on-trade, distributing into customers. Originally in London, but we're now moving on to a national scale, so we've got depots all over the country. And my role is really to, as any buyers, to make sure we have a range which is one, suitable for our customers, two, efficient and working hard, and three, obviously then making sure to manage that commercially, and as well as trying to find the new trends that we can be ahead of the game on.
Right, and the new trends, man. Fruited beers. Like, when did you get a first whiff of like, hang on, something's up here? We want to be getting on board with this.
I think it's been coming for a few years. Like the Jubel guys kind of tapped into it originally, and I think in the UK, should we say that's when the first sort of you could smell the trend coming when they started to gain a lot of momentum, because obviously it's always been there with the idea of the shandy, being that sweeter beer, but the Belgian beers have always been there. The cherry, the Creek Boons, the cherry Stoofs, the Radlers have always been there. It's just been if people drunk that, generally it was a cider drinker who wanted to switch into a beer or had a sweeter tooth. But I think what we have seen now is that as people are moderating, as generational tastes change, so we've gone from cask beer Now we're seeing a lot more, obviously, into the world lagers, and I think we're seeing the rise of the younger generation who have a sweeter tooth, who want more exciting, flavorful, exotic beers that aren't just hop heavy, that have other things, and that could be, you know, hop derived tastes. But also actually it might be just a big whack of syrup in their beer. We're seeing that come through. So I think the Jubel guys kind of really nailed that early on, in the same way Lucky Saint nailed the non-alcoholic early on. And they sort of, then people have noticed that, and everyone then has been like, right, well, we'll chuck in a peach lager, or we'll chuck in a rhubarb IPA, or we'll throw in a, you know, a whatever, into a passion fruit, into a stout. God forbid that ever happened, but you know, that would be we're just seeing people see that everyone's willing to seize fruit on it and go, oh, I'll give that a go, because and so I think it's been coming, but really in the last 2 years, I think 2 to 3 years, we've really seen that begin to boom.
And you mentioned Jubel there being the poster boys for the fruited beer. They kind of they've led the way. Do you think it's purely just a case of them being the first to embrace it, or is there more about them that's made them the leader, and that, you know, they're paving the way?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I think one is they were generally probably the first to do something like that, if that makes it, be a solely dedicated fruit beer. You've all, because as I said, even the Belgian stuff, it is a cherry chouffe, which is a variation of a chouffe, or it is a you know, or it is a framboise lambic, which is a, you know, a variation of a lambic beer. Whereas what they did was go, we are just going to be an Apres beer. We are going to be a, you know, beer de pêche, which is beer with a peach in it, and that's all we're going to do. And then obviously they've had some variations on the flavors throughout the years, but I think what worked so well for them is that they did start out with the mission to be that sole thing. And it took them ages to crack it. You know, it's taken them a long time to sort of nail the flavor, nail the marketing, nail the stuff. You know, it wasn't like overnight success, but they have, over the last number of years, on at a fast pace. I'm not saying they were slow, but like they've moved fast and grown quickly. But it was, I think, a mixture of being true to what understanding their mission and being true to that, and being like, we are going to be a peach beer, we're going to be that beer de pêche that you get skiing, sticking to that, and then multiplying that with an excellent brand, nailing the branding, nailing the mission, nailing the marketing, you know, nailing you know, getting the right people in, getting the right investment in when it was needed, growing at the right times, getting the supermarkets on board, which is a big thing early on. And you know, I think it was a mixture of things that really helped them get there. But so it's probably identifying that this could be something, looking at the trends, looking at the data, moderation, people wanting more accessible beers. How do you recruit women? How do you recruit younger people? Secondly, making the branding work to that, and I think they did that really well.
Yeah, because I was talking to one of my chaps on LinkedIn, a guy called James Hickson, about Jubel, and of course you're right. It's a different product, different messaging, but also the way that they've just kind of gone, well, we're not going to appeal to the normal audience, the normal beer drinker. You referenced earlier on the idea of going for like the cider drinker. You're probably going to get more cider drinkers who are willing to take that little step into the beer realm versus your beer drinker going into a fruited beer. And I think just the way that they've approached that and gone, well, we're going to try our events a little bit differently. We're going to take inspiration from broader brands than just, you know, beer brands, and you're giving out the samples. Like they were there at Brew London last year, I remember giving away samples and bits and bobs. And their approach has always just been that little bit different. So not only is the offering different, but the way they go about it, it's almost like just a, they've always tried to do something just a little bit differently, or take inspiration from outside of the beer market, which seems to work really well for them.
Exactly. I think that's the thing. It's the big thing for brands at this day and age, is how do you recruit new shoppers? Because if you're just relying on the beer drinkers, that is no other way of looking at it, you know, it is a dwindling number in terms of traditional beer drinkers, in terms of cask ale lager drinkers. That is dwindling. So it's all about recruiting. That's what Guinness has done really well. It's just made it basically a brand that people want to drink, even if they don't like Guinness. that's what they've done. So you're right. It's how do you recruit and how do you look beyond, and it's, in many ways, I think we said this last time, to really nail it, I think you need to be more than just a good liquid now. And I think that's one thing that they've done quite well. As you said, I had a mission, did it well, but did things slightly differently to be able to recruit the wider audience.
And on reflection, it almost seems like the obvious bridging mechanism between like beer drinkers and the wider drinker. A bit of fruit. Who doesn't like fruit, apart from people who really want to avoid it? But what do you think has made that so successful? The idea of being a fruited beer. They could have gone other ways. You look at Vault City, and they've gone chocolate bars and all that kind of stuff inspired. But the fruit thing, what do you think leads to that success there?
I think there's one thing. There's two things. One is that it's a proven success before. The Radler has been a success in Europe, for a long time. So I think there's a proven track record of fruit and beer going well together. I think, albeit we said, we were saying about it, recruiting other drinkers as well. Actually, fruit flavors in beers derived from hops has been a big thing people have strived for over the last number of years. And, the explosion of craft with all these different hops bring out different flavors and tropical flavors. So I think people have got used to fruity beers, but more like not necessarily being called deliberately fruity, but being like, this is a tropical style. When they actually just be like, this is fruit beer, therefore was the next variation of that. So I think there had been a preparation for that through the craft movement. Don't get me wrong, I think all the chocolate bar stuff, the Vault City guys are doing amazing things, but I think it genuinely has just come down to that fruit probably has a broader appeal. I like peach, so I'll have that a bit, or mango. Oh, everyone likes a mango in a ice cream or in a whatever else. So it's broad enough that it can recruit people. But if you said, I'm going to do a bounty, stout, people would be like, oh, I don't like a bounty. But if you said, I might do a coconut stout, you might be like, oh, actually, I do like coconut, or I like it in a whatever. So I think you had to keep it broad enough at the same time as having it something differentiating enough to draw people in. So it is that. And I think, we've seen that across, and doing it in a lager is probably another thing that, doing it in a lager generally works well. But otherwise, we're really seeing the rise of, this summer. Emily, who works in my team, has dubbed it the summer of Schofferhofer. Schofferhofer's gone over. It's all the shelves in Tesco, Grip, and Waitrose, everywhere now. And, it's doing really well. But it's a Hefeweizen, so it's even that, but it's that idea. I think if people have grown up eating fruit and eating things like that, and actually that's probably a little bit more accessible than labeling it as a double dunked Oreo stout or a double dunked Oreo IPA. I think just saying pineapple or just saying mango is a bit more accessible. So I think probably that, but I don't have anything more scientific, to be honest, other than I think it's fruit just goes really well with beer, and we derive it out of the hops anyway. So
yeah, there's some logical connections, and like you say, it's a base kind of primitive. Everyone knows what fruit tastes like. It's meant to be good for you. If you step outside of the realm, the other core ingredients, you've got milk, like dairy products or meat, and you don't want to be sticking those in your beer anytime soon. Unlike Vault City might do it, you never know.
Yeah, no.
Obviously, we're in the middle of this summer wave now of the fruited lagers and the fruited beers. And we talked about some obvious flavors like the peaches and the mangoes and stuff. From a commercial aspect, which ones are you seeing working really well, and which ones are you going, okay, well, that didn't hit the mark where we thought it would?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of back to that point I just said. Is like if you go with something like a mainstream flavor, you get more mass appeal. So I think peach, we've said, I don't think I need to comment on that because it's been everywhere. I think lemon has obviously come through. We've seen that, and that's leaning on the traditional Radler or leaning on a shandy as well. That idea of that lemonade coming through. Mango is another one that is really we've seen hit the shelves. I think we're seeing some berry flavors start to come back as well, berry and cherry. So I think the Beavertown guys have brought out Cosmic Drop, which is, again, another berry beer. So we've seen that. I think we've seen some of the Belgian flavors begin to creep into the supermarkets, the raspberries, the framboise, and then obviously I think we've seen Cherry Chouf having a good time for cherry. So I think those sort of flavors like that have done really well. I think when you potentially try and grab something a little bit out there, again, guava. So I think we saw Hazy Jane Guava for a few years. Not a bad beer. If Hazy Jane's an okay beer, it's not a bad beer. Guava actually was not bad. If you like fruit beer, it was good. But again, guava is just something that people can't connect with unless they've been on holiday somewhere where the guys, can get guava and eat it frequently. It's not something you're going to buy in a supermarket. So I think, go even maybe pineapple as well can potentially be a little bit divisive. I haven't seen pineapple land as well as a peach or a mango or something like that. I think blood orange has had its time. Again, it's come and gone. So I think you go through these waves, but there will be some that are stable throughout. But yeah, I think it's when the people push a bit too far to try something. And, like a guava or dragon fruit, or try and go down something as rogue like that, that is probably where you're going to have a very limited success as opposed to going for a mainstream beer. And that may seem to some dull and not very exciting, but realistically, again, and I'm coming at this from a commercial mindset, is if you do want to grow a brand and have commercial success with it, you've got to have something that people are willing to track into. So I think when you go that step too far and try some of the weird and wonderful fruits out there, we haven't seen banana do well. We've seen banana do well with like darker beers because banana bread and stuff, but with lighter summer beers, maybe not so much. I think the grapefruits, the peaches, the mangoes are the way that are really leading the way, those sort of citric fruits.
Yeah. It's really interesting because, like, as you're saying about like the more accessible or well-known fruits as they might be, like there's still room. Like you say, there's the rise of the berry, but you don't have a dominant strawberry one that I can think of. And I know there's that ambiguous crossover. Like, could you have an apple beer, or does it like what's the term like before it becomes cider? Like apple flavored lager.
Yeah,
like, it's an interesting one.
It's that point, yeah. I think there's room for something like that, and it's kind of back to that point with the Jubel guys, was they found a niche and landed on it at a good time. It just takes one person to land on that at a good time and say, oh, actually, we're gonna do an apple beer, or we're gonna do an orange beer, and it actually worked really well. Pomegranate, whatever. It could be something they find, something that just works well and actually get a flavour, and that has mass appeal. I think, yeah, you're right. I think we're getting to the point where technology and creativity, like creative license, is allowing for these things to really explode, which is great.
Is there, like, have you seen any correlation or impact on the likes of sour beers in the market at the same rise as like the fruited lagers and stuff? Because to me, there's a little bit more crossover where you expect fruited stuff from the sour side of things more so than the lager, and that might just be my interpretation. But I'm wondering, are you seeing anything, sours being pulled up by the trend, or getting confused with it?
I'd say so. I think what you're seeing is that people are willing to experiment. People are willing to try new things. People are willing to give things a go, and that's probably because the likes of Brewdog, Tiny Rebel, Jubel, Beavertown have brought that through their supermarket shelves. So you're seeing people being willing to try a different can. If they're buying what was it, like 6 cans for a tenner or whatever it is, they're being willing to go, oh, actually, I'll get 4 that I know and 2 that I don't. And so I think you're just seeing people willing to experiment, people leaning into the likes of fruit flavored beers or flavored beers, whether that be birthday cake, whether that be rhubarb and custard. And I genuinely think a lot of people pick up some beers not realizing that they're sour as well. So, I think you will see that in supermarket shelves. People just being like, I don't know what that is, but I'll give it a go. It looks good. And so I think it's a mixture of the branding spot on for someone like Vault City. People try it and go, ooh, actually, that's not bad. Or, oh, I'm not a sour fan. But, I think you're seeing people being willing to experiment a bit more, particularly when it comes to supermarket shelves. I think maybe less so when it comes to the on trade. I think on trade people are switching back more into brands that they know, because it's just getting so expensive that if I'm paying $7.50 a pint, I want to make sure I enjoy it. So I think you're almost seeing, when people go to supermarkets, that's their chance to explore and try something new, as opposed to whenever they're having a pint.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, because when you look at the supermarket environment and you're going down the craft beer aisle and you've got your like pick four for a certain amount of money, you can have three safe ones, and then you can be like, oh, I might be a little bit adventurous and pick up the odd one I've not had before. And it's a bit of a low risk maneuver in that respect. And I've certainly done it in the past. And I had this conversation on socials about Vault City. Like, some people must, like you say, must have picked up and gone, oh Christ, I didn't realize that was a sour beer. Oh, it's not that sour, actually. It's not too bad. It's like an accidental introduction into sour beers. So well done there.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that's what supermarkets are, that's what I think is great for, if you can get the second, third flavor or second, third variant into a supermarket, that into the deals. That's, it comes off the back of having a core line which will provide success. That's what supermarkets look for. So I think it's that point of, nail your core and then begin to variant, or you've just got to go right down the variant route, like the Vault City guys, and that's what you're known for. And I think that's what they're nailing now, is like, they are on rotationals, and the supermarket's happy them being on rotationals, because but you're right, at that point of, people are willing to experiment now in supermarkets and less so in the bars, I'm finding.
So what about, like, if a brewery is going, all right, we'll dip our toe into the idea of making something a bit fruited, would your recommendation be trying to do something that's going to last them the whole year, or keep it like seasonal and shape it up to something that's more suitable at the time?
I suppose it depends on, well, again, this is me trying to switch off the business brain to an extent. It depends on whether you have the capital to do that, because if you have the capital to pump into or have the money to pump into a year-long campaign of trying to push something, you've got to have, one, the team that are going to push it, but two, the infrastructure to allow that, in terms of, if it doesn't sell, you have a lot of liquid to get rid of, and it might be something a bit rogue, which people don't want. So I think it's that one of, if it was me, I'd obviously just put it, if you've got a tap room, if you've got a couple of beers or pubs out and around, or breweries or beer gardens, do it towards the end of the summer, give it a go, see how it works, and if it picks up the steam, then obviously you can push it out and roll it out and say, look, we're trialing this, roll it out. And I said, at the end of the day, it's all about whether that comes, what's the return, because I don't know, I'm not a brewer, so I don't know quite how hard it is. Is it you just you make the decision, do you add a load of syrup, or do you just try and get the flavors from within the brew? All that stuff, would be the question for the brewers to do. But for me, it's, if it's in the summer, whack it on. People will come to it as soon as they see that fruity thing. They will be, oh, I'll give that a go. It's cold, it's peach, or it's raspberry, oh, it's mango. Yeah, I'll give it a go. And then I would do it on a sensible variant as well. I wouldn't be trying to go, with a peach double hopped IPA or something. It would be like a peach lager, or a raspberry pale ale, or or something like that. I think that's the thing for me, is summer's the time to do it for sure. And then if that works, we see Jubel do all right in the winter, as well. But certainly, obviously, summer and festival seasons is when they really peak. So if you have a festival that you've lined up, why not try something, stick it on a tap at the festival, do a couple of kegs and see how it goes. That would be how I would, if it was me, that's how I'd start it, rather than. And if it absolutely flies, then you've got something. Well, okay, we could give this a go.
No, I in the back of my head, I can hear brewers going like, "Well, this is all well and good, but like, we're in the middle of the fruit forward beers selling. Like we've missed the boat, Tim. Like, why didn't you do this episode 6-9 months ago? So what are the kind of things that you're looking at down the road? Now, I'm not asking you to put all your eggs in one basket, Nathan, but like, what are the trends that people need to be keeping an eye on, or where should our brewers be looking if they're going, right, we want to try and jump on the next wave of what will be popular with the mass consumer?
I think I think we're in the, while we say we're in the middle of fruit forward, I think this is going to be something that comes back again next summer and the summer after and the summer after. It's definitely summer beers, and it could be actually there is something in the winter that catches on, like a dark berry lager or something could catch on in the winter. That sort of, who knows. But I think for us, what we're also seeing is, we've got this, how the trend that I'm seeing, that I really lean into and try and, when I'm chatting with any brands, is how are you making your beer more accessible, because it's the only way you're recruiting new drinkers is by having recruiters growing, is by recruiting new drinkers and having a more accessible beer, because people are drinking less when they're out, so they're moderating or they're switching into non-alc. So obviously we see non-alc as a big opportunity as ever. No need to dwell on that one, but moderation. So we are seeing that people look at the ABV as well. So are people looking at that 2.5 to 3.4 avenue and going, okay, actually there's a beer opportunity there, a lighter ABV. People are looking at health conscious, beers are counting calories on beers as well. So the likes of, likes of Prime Time calling out, they're 95 calories a beer or whatever it is, a calorie deficit beer, or, calorie, good for you beer, all those things with magnesium and whatever else in it. That's something that we're seeing some of the data suggest is an exciting avenue as well. But generally, the three things that are popping out are, it is still, unfortunately, sunshine beers. People are looking at sunshine beers and going, that's what we want, that's the mass appeal. And then I think fruit, beer, and moderation are the three that we look at and go, on a wider scale across the market, that's what's really beginning to turn people's heads in pubs, in bars, and it's starting to influence their thinking. So yeah, I think, on something like sour beer is such a niche, and their Vault City guys are smashing it. Will that catch on, or will just the Vault City guys own that, is yet to be seen. But that would be another one I would look at and go, okay, maybe people are going to look down that route, trying to find the weird and wonderful stuff. Like the Iron Brew beer by the Fierce guys is fantastic. I'm a sucker for that. But I think we're looking at those trends and going, would something like that catch on, or is that just those flashes and pans coming up and trying, like the Iron Brew beer? That's great. If they did it, would therefore a Ting beer do just as well? Would a Fanta exotic beer do that? Maybe not, but the Iron Brew really caught. You just don't know. So I think trends wise, as I said, we're still mass appeal. It's still going to be sunshine beers. We're seeing fruit and moderation be the two things, the two trends that I look at and go, I think really will have legs over the next few years.
Okay, so there we go. All the brewery needs to do is create a fruit, low calorie, low no beer, which is perfect for the sunshine, and then they're going to be balling, right? That's the winner.
That's it. I genuinely think, if you could get that too. This is why I think Schofferhofer is brilliant, is because it's a 2.5% Hefeweizen and grapefruit. Bang, you have that. They've got a tropical one out at the minute as well. It's just like drinking an umbongo. Honestly, it's beautiful.
So you come back to the wonder about the raise of the sour beers, and you're talking about Iron Brew. I think they're missing a trick. The Panda Pops, I reckon that'd be a Panda. Do you know what I mean? That would be like a wicked series. And if Vault City hear this, I want creds on that, okay? I've also got another brilliant idea for a sours range, but I'm not going to say that live. I want people who are willing to actually do it and then collab with me on it, because it'll kick off. I can tell you that. But yeah, Panda Pop range of sours, I reckon, be epic.
There you go. That's it.
All right, so low cal, low no, fruit forward.
Yeah.
Those are the areas that we're looking for, or what you can see coming down the line.
It's what I'm seeing as some of the trends. I think moderation is the one that we're seeing people, and that could be actually they're drinking just less. It could be they want healthier beer. It could be they want lower ABV beer. I think it's that moderation thing is just a trend across the brewing industry that we're seeing. And so that is therefore you need to make your beer stand out in a way that draws people in. So if they're spending 15 quid on 2 pints, they come back to you twice. And that's what we're seeing. But at the same time, I think, the moderation trend is something that isn't going to go away as well. That's a generational thing, I think, coming through.
Like, is it worthwhile breweries looking outside of the beer world for other trends? Because it can be influential when you realize something is changing in other consumer products. You're like, oh, okay, there might be something similar happening here in the beer world.
Yeah, I think so. I think the one thing I always say to anyone who's I'm chatting to about, they're like, oh, I'd love to get into supermarkets. I'm like, well, I've asked the buyer what the flavour of the supermarket is for that year, because it could be, well, it was, I can't remember when it was. I was at Sainsbury's for one of the years, it was pomegranate. And everything that happened that around the taste of difference, desserts to the gin that came out, to some of the, the drinks in the fridge, all the sort of stuff around Christmas was all pomegranate themed, and then throughout the summer it was pomegranate themed. So throughout the year it was just pomegranate, and that became the year. So it's that thing of, if you can get a head start and be like, oh, what are you thinking as your flavour? Because that could be a way of getting in and saying, oh, right, actually we're going with blood orange this year, and it could be, we've seen chocolate orange, blood orange, or like, right, we'll do a blood orange beer. That could get it go. So it's things like that. I think if you can one, try and see what trends are out there in other things, or people, it could be we're seeing people massively move into Soleros again. It's like, right, tropical flavors. Or you're seeing people move into Panda Pops, right? Let's get a Panda Pop. Or it's like we're seeing people there's a bit of a cult following getting behind this one particular, snack or something, and be like, right, well, actually, can we pair something up with that? That's what the Made for Drinks guys do really well. Made for Drink is a snack brand. They pair up with like key brands and say, like, this snack goes really well with Laurent Perrier, or this snack goes really well with Australia, or this snack goes really well with the Bombay Sapphire, gin and tonic. And that is another way of looking at it, like what trends are out there in the market, in the wider market, that they can maybe partner with and pair up with. Is there, someone going to do, is like Prime Minister going to do a shipper into Tesco's and be like, right, well, actually, we could do a beer collab with you, and you could use our ale in your beer, and that would be another way of growing it. So I think that's one way, but at the same time, it's seeing what's trending out there. If there is a flavor of the year, pick up that, see what's going on. I think we've seen, and then seeing if we're seeing some weird and wonderful, spirit cocktails and stuff go out there, what flavors are going on there? Is there something we can look at, we can complement? So I think there is something. You've got to look around and see what's going on out in the world. But at the same time, as I said, I think it's maybe harder with brew, because in gin you can literally just stick a flavor in and go, that's now this flavor. Gin brewing is a much more difficult, not more difficult process, but potentially more challenging process because of what you can and can't put in it and what happens to the brew. But yeah, definitely looking around, seeing what's out in the market, seeing what flavors are going to be the flavor of the year for supermarkets, etc., is certainly something I would be looking at.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a really cool point. I didn't even know that supermarkets had a flavor of the year, and then also like the trending products, like what are the things that are on the rise, and then comes back to what's the trending lifestyle stuff. So as you say, the well-being stuff. There's actually different pools of what's trending and popular that, in one way or another, your brand can tap into it. You can be a beer for the health-conscious person, or you can be a beer that ties into the rise of what's it's probably not what's. Nobody make a what's it beer. No one wants to drink that, but you know what I mean, man. You know what I mean.
Yeah, that's it. No one wants a cheesy beer.
You never know. It might come. But you can get beer cheese, can't you? It works the other way around for some reason.
Yeah, it works the other way around. Yeah, I think I'd rather like eat a beer and cheese as opposed to drink cheesy beer.
That's fair. Although it does throw me back to a can of cider I had back in the day that smelled of cheese and tasted of baked beans. Anyway, that's a me problem, not a you problem or anyone else listening. Jack has chimed in from LinkedIn saying that he would like to send you some of their Radler, Nathan. So
lovely. Always happy to receive some Radler.
Oh, and there we go. Don't forget fruity ciders too, chaps. Yeah, but
there we go. Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing. It's that thing of it. I think people are if you're doing more rhubarb and rhubarb based cider or rhubarb cider or whatever else about that is definitely going to be something that people are looking for as well. Yeah. So I think it's fruit transcends more than just beer. It is beer, cider. Obviously we've seen it in gin as well over the years.
Just stick fruit in it and you can't go far wrong. That's a really broad, sweeping statement to summarize this chat today. Nathan, mate, it's been another really cool chat, really valuable, mate. I really appreciate it. If people did want to send you their Radlers or indeed just pick your brains or get in touch with you, mate, and know a little bit more about what you're doing, what you're looking for when it comes to taking on new brands, where should they be getting in touch with you, bud?
Yeah, so I think reach out on LinkedIn obviously is always a good shot. I try and be as reactive as I can on LinkedIn. As and when I get messages, it's probably the best way. You can also shoot me an email. You can get that through the Venus website. So yeah, you can get in touch with me there.
Nice one. And of course, if anyone also wants to send me any fruited beers, radlers, or ciders, I'll also take them. But I can't help you get them onto the shelves. That's not what I do. Everyone, as always, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you're all very busy. You're all doing a lot of hard work making epic beers out there. So giving us this wonderful nearly 40 minutes is a blessing. You all stay awesome. If you like this show, just search Branding for Breweries on your favorite streaming platform. You'll find it there, and like and subscribe and all that icky stuff that I hate saying, but I have to do it because I want to know how many people listen to this and that I'm valued, and I need that kind of ego boosting every time. Anyway, that's enough babbling. You all rock, and I'll see you for the next episode. Thank you, everyone, and rock on.